I thought I would carry on reading Monty the dog who wears glasses. Hopefully you enjoyed the last one, and this is just the continuation of his adventures. Hopefully you enjoy it. So Monty at the supermarket. Mrs. Sprod was at the entrance to the supermarket. Look, Monty, you've got company today. It's that sulky St. Bernard and that silly poodle with a knitted jacket. I'll only be 10 minutes, Mrs. Sprod told Monty as she took a trolley from the line and went inside. Monty hated waiting. The supermarket looked so inviting. He could see bright lights and people having trolley races. After a few minutes, the man in charge of trolleys came out and added some stray ones to the line. Oh no, here we go, the routine pat. See Monty there with his friends. The trolley man had his own names for most of the regulars. Hello Bernie, my old chum. Greetings Poodle-oodle-oodle. And good morning to you, Specs. My name is Monty, actually. The trolley man went away again and carried on waiting. Monty eyed the line of the trolleys. Maybe I could get up into one of those, he thought. So he slipped up his collar and had a go. It must be less boring than waiting back here. This is more fun. As soon as he settled down, a lady in a fur coat came along and hauled Monty's trolley out of the line. Uh-oh, what's going to happen? She didn't notice Monty. She wheeled the trolley inside. This is what I call luxury, Monty thought. Soon Monty was in the warm and there was the sound of soothing supermarket music. Doesn't look very happy. Monty was sitting at the bottom part of the trolley and the lady was loading tins into the top part. She bought nothing but cat food, thought Monty. What dreadful taste. They were soon at the checkout counter. The girl at the till began taking tins of Catty Kit out of the trolley. She didn't notice Monty until she took out the last tin. No dogs allowed in the store, she told the fur-coated lady. Really? Shrieked the lady. Do I look like the sort who'd have a scruffy old mongrel like that? Monty said. At least I don't have a moth-eaten coat. Just when things were getting nasty, a man with a moustache came over and settled the argument. He seemed to be the manager and he took Monty into his office. Monty prepared himself for a ticking off. I'm in for it now. Doesn't look too happy. But the manager turned out to be friendly. He was in the middle of morning tea and gave Monty his slice of fruitcake, a man of good taste. Monty was finishing the last mouthful of cake when the trolley man came in. Looks quite happy there, eating his cake. His owner's a bit worried. The trolley man said that the dog with the specs had been reported lost from the dog's waiting area. The manager himself took Monty back to Mrs. Sprod. She looked relieved but embarrassed. Why all the fuss? Monty thought. Mrs. Sprod fastened Monty's collar. Really, why can't you be patient like these other dogs? She said. I've had more fun than them, thought Monty, and I can highly recommend the fruitcake. Monty gets the chop. Simon and Josie Sprod were worried that Monty was just as clumsy as ever. It was only an old vase anyway. Uh-oh, what's he done there? They'd made Monty a pair of glasses to remind him to look where he was going, but he still seemed accident-prone. From now on, every time you cause an accident, we're going to put it in the book, said Simon. Monty's mishaps. And if you get 3 mishaps in one day, you're in for the chop, said Josie. Uh-oh, look at him, his poor little face. I don't like the sound of this chop. Monty had to make sure he was extra careful from now on. He walked round the house very cautiously. But then, at lunchtime, Monty was careless. When getting a sausage that someone had left on their plate, he pulled off the tablecloth and most of the things on it. Oh dear. It all went down in the book. Monday, number 1, Monty broke 2 plates and a cup. Later, on his way to the garden, Monty knocked over the plant pot in the hall. That went down in the book too. Number 2, Monty broke plant pot in the hall. Monty was really worried now. One more mishap and he'd be in for the chop. He hardly dared to move in case he knocked something over or spilled something or put his foot in something. Dear. In the end, Monty just sat in his basket while Mrs. Sprod got on with the cooking. "You're very quiet this evening, Monty. Are you all right?" Before Monty could open his mouth, Mrs. Sprod took a delicious dish from the oven. It smelt absolutely delicious. "Oh dear, I've cooked too much meat," murmured Mrs. Sprod. "Here, Monty, as you're being so good, you can have the chop." How very confusing, thought Monty as he licked his lips. Whatever was I so worried about? Gobble, gobble. Turned out okay after all. Monty's picnic. It was a beautiful sunny day and the Sprod family were going on a picnic. Monty was dozing in his basket. "I can't wait to get to the seaside." "Now, have I got everything?" asked Mrs. Sprod as she examined the hamper. Vacuum flasks, plastic cups, serviettes, egg sandwiches, mince pies. Suddenly, Monty sat up. "Did someone say mince pies?" Look how happy he looks. Mrs. Sprod took the hamper to the car. Simon and Josie helped to tie it on. "Make sure it's secure." Mrs. Sprod locked up the house and then they were off. They went for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles. You see that there? Wonder what they passed. And after 2 hours, "Are we nearly there? 20 more hungry miles, about 20 miles to go." Mrs. Sprod noticed they were getting low on petrol. Josie spotted a garage. Mrs. Sprod drew up and got out to work the pump. Mr. Sprod and the children went to investigate the shop. "This could be my chance for a little snack," thought Monty. When Mrs. Sprod went to pay at the till, Monty clambered through the back window and onto the roof of the car. He sniffed the hamper and there was no stopping him. He nudged open the lid, hopped in and got to work on the pies. By the time Monty was on his 5th mince pie, he heard voices from below. "Crikey, they're back already!" Before he could do anything, the car started up. Vroom! Oh no! Monty held onto the sides of the hamper as the car sped along. He only just managed to duck in time for a bridge. Phew, that was close. That must look very funny. They went round lots of bends. I feel sick. And over lots of bumps. I wish I hadn't eaten all those mince pies. Oh dear. Meanwhile, back inside the car. "Is Monty enjoying the ride?" asked Mrs. Sprod. For the first time, Simon and Josie looked down at the empty space between them. "Oh no! Monty's disappeared!" "What?" exclaimed Mr. Sprod. The car screeched to a halt. It was such a sudden jolt that Monty and the picnic food were hurled from the hamper. Oh no, he's going flying. I do hope he's okay. "Look, Monty's flying. He's gone over the hedge." Monty came down with a bump. Ouch. Mr. Sprog got out. He was quite angry. That dog must have been sitting inside the hamper. Oh, he doesn't look too happy, does he? Monty doesn't look very well either, and his glasses look a bit broken. Monty looked ill. The vacuum flask is broken, the food is ruined, but Monty's safe. That's the main thing. "Let's go to the seaside anyway," said Mrs. Sprod. "We'll find a nice snack bar." So that's what they did. This hot dog is delicious, but guess who couldn't eat another thing all day? Who is it? Monty. It's quite full up there. Dear. Okay, right, I'm going to leave that there. So we're about halfway through our book, and I hope you enjoyed it. So see you soon.